if you are in the military, be exceptionally careful with who you're chatting with or who you're meshing on a dating app. Be highly skeptical and don't send anything that just think about it this way. If you wouldn't want your text to be displayed as a prosecution exhibit to the entire world, don't send them, period. And if you ever get the notion that the person is not who they say they are, just walk away because do you really want to be in a relationship with someone that's deceptive? If they're deceptive from the onset, this is not someone you want to be with. Move on. There's a million people in the world, and you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's going to be deceptive because that's start to have all sorts of potential issues down the road.
Hey, Tim, thanks for taking the time for recording another session of Off the Record. Today, I want to talk about dating apps and how they get a lot of service members in trouble. I know we've talked off the record about this and some catfishing in the military. Let's kind of start off with what's something that a service member could do on a dating app that might seem harmless, but it might actually be, a career ender.
Yeah, I mean, be really careful what you do on a dating app and in text messaging. There's a whole lot of ways this can go wrong for you. The first thing is you don't know who you're texting. You don't know who's on the other side of that until you actually met them in person. Oftentimes, we think we live in this fantasy land where we can text online. There's no repercussions for it, but there really are. Everything that you text someone else is going to be saved either on their phone or it can be downloaded from yours. And oftentimes we get into this sexting, and people say, "Oh, sexting can't get me in trouble," but the reality is it can. And not everyone who's on a dating app who claims that they're single are actually single. Understand that from Jump Street. A lot of people are on dating apps, whether it's a guy who is married and they're saying they're not married, or a woman who says they are single but they're married, and you find out that maybe they are married. Hey, they could be married to your sergeant major, or maybe they could be married to an officer, or married to a civilian in their military. Who knows? But you find out that they're married, or even if you don't find out that they're married and you're sending all of these text messages back and forth that are overly silly sexual. For some reason, I don't understand the modern world. Why guys want to always send the D pic. I don't fully
Hmm.
understand the world we live in today, but I've seen an obscene amounts of pics that guys like to send. Don't send this stuff because it's in the ether forever. And if you're texting someone, you don't know who they are. You don't know if they're married. You don't know if they're not married. You don't know their personality trait. And, if a husband or a wife or a spouse or someone from the command sees this, they screenshot it. Now you can potentially have a charge of indecent communication or fraternization, or it could be, adultery, or, now it's extramarital sexual contact if you go and then hook up with someone. And that's on the benign side of things. And the other thing we see too is we see a lot of minors, mostly high school girls more than anything else, who portray themselves as adults. And there's two parts to this. We have the sting operations where you have NCIS and law enforcement agent taking on the persona of a minor. And then you have actually high school girls who are maybe 16, 17, even 15, who hold themselves out to be older looking for service members. I mean, it's incredibly common. You have a high school girl who's on Tinder, Bumble, Badoo, whatever the app that you're on. It's an 18 plus app. They say they're 18 plus, and maybe they're in high school. Maybe their thing is trying to find a young soldier for whatever reason. Hey, it's only 3 years apart, but it's a monumental difference. If you are a young service member right out of high school and you're 18 years old, maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal that you're talking to someone who's 16 because I 6 months ago they would have been in high school and maybe it wasn't a big age gap difference. But the minute you turn 18, it's a no-go. And now you're in the military. You can't be dating high school girls. And maybe you don't understand that they're high school girls and you're texting them, you're sexting them, you're sending the pics that you wouldn't want your mom to see. And next thing you know, the girl's father sees this and says, "Who the hell are you texting?" And then the command gets called. And next thing you know, you are in a tremendous amount of trouble. You're under investigation. You're pending all sorts of serious allegations because you were chatting with someone who was a minor. Maybe you didn't even know they were a minor. And so, is there a defense? Yeah, of course, there's the defense. It's called mistake of fact as to age. You had a reasonable belief that you were talking to someone who wasn't adult. But do you really want to go through that process? Do you really want to go through the process of being on legal hold and maybe you're just finished with basic training in AIB and you're right into the fleet and now you get put on legal hold and for a child sexual offense? Are you crazy to want to do that? Is it worth it? Because you were sexting someone and sending D pics to someone that, hey, maybe you thought they were 18, but they were actually 16. Is it worth that? Absolutely not. It's not worth it. And so be extremely cautious who you're chatting with on any type of social media app. And if you're my age and someone says they are young, walk away. I mean, are you crazy? I see people that are my age or E7s and officers. I mean, it's one thing if you just turned 18 and you're right out in the fleet and you talk to someone and now they're a senior in high school and 6 months ago you might have dated them, but things have changed. That's one thing. But if you are in your 30s or your 40s and you're chatting with someone like, oh, I'm 18, LOL, or whatever it is, right? Are you crazy to do that? You've got to walk away and not do that because number one is I'm not the morality police, but is it really worth risking an entire career for this? And so when it comes to dating and dating apps, the first thing is be very skeptical with who you're talking to because people catfish all the time. They make more money than they say they do. They have a better job than they say they do. They are prettier or more good looking than they say they are. That's just the world of dating apps. Thank God I'm not have anything to do with that world. You know, I don't want to date myself, but thank God I don't have to, right? But people just aren't who they say they are. And it leads to so many problems. You have no idea how many calls I get, how many investigations, how many careers have been ended, whether it's criminal or administrative, because you've been chatting with someone on a dating app who they say they are. And that's not even to mention the NCIS sting operations where an NCIS agent or CID agent poses as a minor. I mean, here's the bottom line. If someone tells you on chat that they are under the age of 18, stop talking to them. Don't say, well, let's continue the chat, or don't give me this nonsense of, well, I wanted to save them. I wanted to make sure that I wanted to meet them to try to make sure
Mm,
no one else
right.
would do this. Bullshit. I mean, stop chatting with them. If you want to save yourself a charge sheet of abusive sexual contact, I mean, attempted abusive sexual contact of a minor, indecent language with a minor, all sorts of potential charges. You want to save yourself $60,000 or more in legal fees. Stop the chat. At any time, if someone says, even if you thought they were 27 and gorgeous and had made millions of dollars and drove a Bentley and blah, 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 and now they're in love with you, they say, oh, by the way, I'm actually 15. Stop.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
don't another text. I mean, just stop it. Right?
that brings me to a question though about, like, everybody knows that you shouldn't. I mean, if you're dealing with minors, you're going into some very nefarious activities. But as an attorney, I mean, how often are people actually blindsided by this and charged, and then find themselves in a situation where they were, like well, like you said before, where they have, I just thought, I assumed they were 18 because you have to be 18 on the app. How often does that happen where
It,
people are actually
it,
blindsided?
it happens more than you think. And here's where it happens. It happens when you have high school girls posing as 18 or 19-year-olds because they want to date a service member. There are a shocking amount, especially in military towns. You see this is a lot more prevalent outside of Bragg, outside of Cavazos or Hood, outside of Lejeune, where you have high school girls, and maybe it's guys too. I'm not on a stereotype, but I just see more girls doing this than guys who are 15, 16, 17, they want to date a Marine. They don't want to date a high school boy. They want to date a soldier. And so they put themselves out as above 18 because it's easy to do. They get a pic, and maybe it's the actual pic of her, maybe it's been photoshopped or enhanced. They look older than they actually are, and they will be chatting with someone trying to hook up with a Marine. It happens all the time. And if you're chatting with someone, and a lot of Marines get blindsided by this because how does it come to light? Who finds out? Dad finds out. Almost every time dad finds out or mom finds out. They see a text, they look at the phone, and their prurient daughter is now having messages which will make anyone blush with a Marine, and they lose their mind. I mean, if you're a parent, wouldn't you probably lose your mind as well if your daughter is
Right.
sexting with a 18,
Absolutely.
19-year-old
Yeah. Yeah.
Marine? And then it gets even worse. What if it's a 33-year-old Marine? I mean, that becomes a lot more problematic. But when the people that get blindsided more are my young soldiers and young Marines more often, it can be airmen and Navy as well, but who are talking to someone they believe is about their age, but it's someone in high school. And then they get not caught, they get blindsided by it. Dad and
Mhm.
mom are hell bent on prosecuting. And so these cases get prosecuted because there's tremendous pressure by the parents to prosecute. And now you get placed on legal hold. Your career is on pause. You have a charge sheet, which will
Mhm.
make you a registered child sex offender if you're convicted. And now
Mhm.
we have to show that you had this mistake of fact as to age, which means that you had a reasonable belief that the person you were chatting with was 18. And those cases, we win those cases all the time. They're not hard to win based on the text messages. But the service member, okay, they win. What did they really win? Their career's over. It was a year to go to trial. They've been passed over for promotion. They're they went from being a supermoto Marine right into the fleet to on legal hold for a year for a child sexual assault offense. Really?
Yeah.
And you win. Then what happens then? It's really hard to recover your good name. What I mean, it can be done, but it's really hard. And so I've done so many of these cases. The vast majority of them we've won because we can show it. 18 plus dating site. They said they're 18. They often have fake IDs. They just want to date a Marine and brag about dating a Marine. And that's another way people get caught. All right. Maybe it's not mom and dad. Maybe they have sex with this Marine and they're in high school and they brag to everyone about it. And this stuff spreads like wildfire and it gets back to a counselor, a parent, someone at school. And it gets, and in a military town where if you're at, if you're in Killeen, Texas, it's a small town right outside of base and things spread and these investigations can start. So you have to be, if you are in the military, be exceptionally careful with who you're chatting with or who you're meshing on a dating app. Be highly skeptical and don't send anything that just think about it this way. If you wouldn't want your text to be displayed as a prosecution exhibit to the entire world, don't send them. Period. And if you ever get the notion that the person is not who they say they are, just walk away because do you really want to be in a relationship with someone that's deceptive? If they're deceptive from the onset, this is not someone you want to be with. Move on. There's a million people in the world. And you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's going to be deceptive because that's start to have all sorts of potential issues down the road. And
Mhm.
that's completely notwithstanding the NCIS sting operations or the OSI or CID sting operations that are run. Which the bottom line is, the minute someone says, "Oh, by the way, I'm not actually 18, I'm actually 15. Stop. Don't, oh, really? I didn't know that. Are you sure? I'm just, at that point in time, you have now been put on notice that the person is purporting to be a minor. I don't care what happened before. Stop the chat and do not re engage it.
When I was in the military, this is way the 80s and 90s. So I didn't have a lot of the problems that a lot of these service members are facing these days. So now, um, digital is everything, right? And we know the nature of young Marines, young soldiers, or even it's just human nature to flirt. So when digital flirting turns into a legal nightmare, what usually happens here?
Well, it really depends, right? And so it's the nature of the chats itself. And it goes back to is it criminal? You have the Constitution gives you a wide latitude into freedom of speech and what you can text about, but it is limited. It's not unlimited. And when you start sexting about things that are highly inappropriate, it could turn to what's called indecent communication. And there's a line that can be crossed. And where we typically see this crossed is again when someone is not 18. That's the vast majority of the time we see it. Or when someone's married or they are in a relationship or, maybe they're a senior, maybe they're in your chain of command, right? And we see that that's not all the time, but we see that as well. And so just be very, very careful and cautious about what you text because you may delete it. You may delete the text, but if they do an FFE, a full file extraction of your phone, it's likely going to come up and you can't delete what's on the other side. I know some apps say you can delete for both parties, but it can be screenshot, it can be preserved. And there are ways to protect yourself from that to make it more difficult to recover. But trust when I say a good DFE or digital forensic examiner with the right software typically recovers these messages. And when someone says, well, I deleted them, well, I understand you deleted them, but the digital forensic examiner did an FFS or a full FFE, a full file extraction on your phone, and here are the messages. So we're dealing with them.
One final question when it comes to dating apps and catfishing and stuff. What surprises your clients the most when they're facing charges, due to their dating behavior?
That is criminal. I mean, most clients are surprised that because they were
They're like,
chatting
"What?
with
That's
someone,
criminal?"
yeah,
Yeah.
that is. It's like I was saying these. I thought I had a freedom of speech. Well, it's abrogated the minute you join the Marine Corps. No different than you can post online hate about the president or your chain of command. The minute you sign up for the military, your freedom of speech is limited, and that's by design. And so people are always surprised that their actions are now criminal. I say, what's the harm? I was just sexting with someone. I didn't know that they were married. I didn't know that was my battalion commander's wife. And if, hey, that's an interesting story, right? I didn't know she was still in high school, whatever it happens to be. But is understand that that's going to get looked at and highly scrutinized. And let's say you don't get charged. All right, but let's, still you may be under investigation for 4, 5, 6 months and placed on legal hold. And as a very young Marine, right into the fleet, and that's going to be a career killer for you. Or if you are a brand new soldier and your first duty assignment, did you really work that hard to go through basic, to go through AIT, to get into the fleet, to have it all ruined because of some sexting? Yeah, I understand maybe the frontal lobe and the executive functioning isn't fully developed in our young 18, 19-year-old service members. I'm tracking that. But at the same time, you need to really stop and think through what you're doing because it could have devastating consequences to you. Text in a way that is appropriate. You can flirt, you can do all of those other things, but don't take it over the top and make sure you actually meet someone. Because what's the point of having just a conversation? Actually meet someone, and if you want to meet on a dating app, great. That's awesome. I know a lot of people that have had very successful relationships on a dating app, but make sure the person you're actually communicating with is who they say they are. And the best way to do that is to meet them and use your common sense and observation.
So that's probably your best advice right now. If you're using digital means to communicate with people that you don't know, right, which is how we're doing this, take the time to get to know them. And then, I mean, obviously, at that point when a relationship develops, it's safer. You know who they are. You know they're not married. You know they're of age. All these things. Then, obviously, then use your freedoms. Do what you want. And you're, like you said, you're not the moral police, but where people get blindsided is when they're dealing with people that they don't know, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, just protect yourself. And for the love of God, stop sending D-pics. I mean, my God, no. And maybe I'm just wrong. Women don't want to see that. And I don't want to see that. And it's in the evidence in half of these cases. You don't need to do it. Use your personality and your charm. You don't need to send a pic. That's my word of advice for the day. Stop sending D-pics. But beyond that, what you're saying, though, Jason, is 100% correct. Use the dating app. It can be something that can be used for good. It can be used for bad. Use it for good, get to know someone, and hey, maybe have a great relationship out of it and not a criminal charge.